Washington Pod presents EARL Nightingale.
There are two distinct kinds of successful people. There are what I call the river people and the goal people. Let's take a good look at the river people. River people are those fortunate persons who find themselves born to perform a special task. Mozart and Da Vinci were river people. There are thousands of river people living today, millions. They're the people who know from childhood what they want to do with their lives. No more than that. They're people who could do nothing else with their lives. They seem born to spend their lives in great rivers of interest, and they throw themselves into their rivers 100%, busy themselves with whatever it happens to be. They don't tend to think about the idea of success or the making of money. They simply spend their lives doing the best they can in their river of interest. And they're often responsible for some of the largest institutions on earth. We all know the stories of Alexander Graham Bell and Thomas Edison, the businesses that have grown from their inventions and circle the globe and are among the largest on the planet. Einstein was such a person, of course, but there are thousands of them that we never hear of. They're people who would be perfectly content in their fields of interest with only a modest maintenance diet and a roof over their heads. Their work is everything. But because they usually render a very valuable service in the performance of their work, be it in the arts or sports or commerce, they're usually well rewarded for their efforts, though they may struggle for years before recognition comes to them. And sometimes success comes to them at a very early age. The old motion pictures keep coming back on cable television. Recently I caught a glimpse of one that starred Mickey Rooney when he was a boy of perhaps 13 or 14. Long before that, he was a seasoned vaudeville and motion picture veteran. He was a natural, as they say. He took to show business the way Mozart took to music, or Edison to tinkering and invention, or Lindbergh to flying. Today, Mr. Rooney is a distinguished actor with the facility to do comedy, tragedy, or musicals with equal ease. He's been a show business phenomenon since childhood. Success is something Mr. Rooney didn't have to worry about. He has a river of interest that has entertained millions and will go on entertaining millions for many years to come. George Eastman was another with a great river of interest that found expression in the Kodak camera industry. And there was Birdseye and frozen food, Hershey and chocolate, Ford and the automobile. The list goes on with the great worldwide organizations that grew from a single person with a consuming river of interest. Walt Disney's a good example, and I'm sure you can think of many more. They're the river people. Dr. Abraham Maslow talked about such people. He said, one could say a good match is like the perfect love affair or friendship in which it seems that people belong to each other and were meant for each other. In the best instances, the person and his job fit together and belong together perfectly, like a key in a lock, or perhaps resonate together, like a sung note which sets into sympathetic resonance a particular string in the piano keyboard. And Maslow said, I've found it most useful for myself to differentiate between the realm of being, the B realm, and the realm of deficiencies, or D realm, that is, between the eternal and the practical, simply as a matter of the strategy and tactics of living well and fully, and of choosing one's life instead of having it determined for us. This is a help. It's so easy to forget ultimates in the rush and hurry of daily life, especially for young people. So often we're merely responders, so to speak, simply reacting to stimuli, to rewards and punishments, to emergencies, to pains and fears, to demands of other people, to superficialities. It takes a specific, conscious effort, at least at first, to turn one's attention to intrinsic things and values, perhaps seeking actual physical aloneness, perhaps exposing oneself to great music, to good people, to natural beauty, and so forth. Only after practice do these strategies become easy and automatic, so that one can be living in the B realm, as Dr. Maslow called it. I believe that each of us, because of the way our genetic heritage is stacked, has an area of great interest. And it's that area that we should explore with the patience and assiduity of a paleontologist in an important dig, for it's a region of great potential. Somewhere within it we can find that avenue of interest that so perfectly matches our natural abilities, we'll be able to make our greatest contribution and spend our lives in work we love. If we can find our river of interest, we need only throw ourselves into it, fully committed, and there spend our days learning and growing and finding new emerging fields of interest within its boundaries. If we cannot, then it's incumbent upon us to find our greatest aptitudes and employ them in whatever field offers us the greatest challenge and opportunity. Then we need only set goals to reach. Many will ask, well, why set goals at all? Why not just take things as they come and do your best with what you have with which to work? A goal gives the picture to the subconscious. Without a goal, we're much like the man with a boat and nowhere to go. Goals give us the drive and energy we need to remain on the track long enough for their accomplishment. Goals motivate us. Like the captain of a ship about to leave port, we should be able to tell anyone our next port of call. If you've done much traveling at sea, you were perhaps surprised in the beginning by how slowly most large ships move through the water. In a time when it's common for us to drive at 60 and 70 miles an hour and fly at 600 miles an hour, a ship pulling away from the dock and heading for a distant port at 20 knots may seem slow indeed. But the ship moves steadily, 24 hours a day, always on course, and the cumulative effect of such relentless singleness of purpose has us at the next port of call in a surprisingly short time. One day we raise the distant shore, and soon we're in the harbor with mission accomplished. Now the ship must have a new destination. People with goals to reach on which they've set their hearts and minds are always moving toward their goals. Even while we sleep, our deep minds are apparently working on the project. That's why we often awake early in the morning with a solution to a problem that offered resistance to our progress clearly in mind. We think about our goal as we have our morning coffee and breakfast while we're in the shower. It comes to us again and again during the day. We're on course. We're moving toward the fulfillment of our current goal. And it's often the last thing we think about as we drop off to sleep. It's our aiming point. And people with aiming points tend to reach them. It's astonishing how people with goals tend to live longer than people without them. It's as though they can extend their lives simply because they still have something to do. It's the interest that seems to lend vitality and energy to their lives. And when they do come to the end of their lives, they're caught up in full stride, fully alive, and still moving toward a new, interesting port of call. An old ship has visited successfully thousands of ports of call. There have been storms and breakdowns, delays when they've had to anchor offshore for a while, but the life of the ship has been one success after another. That's the way goal-oriented people spend their lives. Each goal, successfully reached, finds them better equipped and with more experience to set the next one. So goals for such people tend to ascend in stair-like fashion, each one a bit more demanding and fulfilling than the one before. In a few years, they find themselves accomplishing with surprising ease goals that would have been impossible when they began their hegira into the future. Yes, as old Cervantes wrote, the journey is better than the inn. The journey toward the meaningful goals of our lives lead us into new areas of interest and the most surprising kinds of synchronicity. Quite often, if we read a story with the kind of coincidences that are often a natural part of a goal-oriented person's active life, we'd put it down while muttering impossible. But astonishing as it may seem, that kind of synchronicity becomes an active part of the goal-oriented person's life. The right people seem to show up at just the right time. Situations suddenly change, opening yawning chasms of opportunity where before there were none. At a meeting, we find ourselves being introduced to the exact person we most need at that particular stage of our journey. A minor accident, which we may at first see as a setback, turns out to be a blessing in disguise. For the people working toward goals, it sometimes seems as though the smiling face of good fortune has joined us on our quest, and we should learn to be alert for such serendipitous occurrences. They're part of being on the journey rather than resting at the inn. We should not try to force such happenings. We must learn, as the Taoist reminds us, not to push the river, whether we're actually river people or not. We need to go with the flow. The right things will happen at the right time, without forcing, without impatience, if we keep steadily on course, our goal clearly in mind. And we'll find ourselves with our goal realized one fine day, just as we'll raise the coastline of the port toward which our ship is churning, or our sailboat sailing. There it is, and we shield our eyes and stand at the rail and imagine we can smell the land and hear the sounds of the busy harbor. Soon we're tied up at the pier. Our latest journey is success.